Have you ever turned on the television, listened to some perfectly coiffed news anchor talk about how absolutely incredible the economy is doing, and then looked down at your grocery receipt and wondered if you are living in some kind of bizarre alternate reality? The television screen is filled with bright green arrows, flashing numbers, and breaking news banners celebrating record stock market gains and glowing jobs reports that make it sound like we are all swimming in cash. Meanwhile, you are sitting at your kitchen table staring at an $8 tub of butter or a $7 box of cereal, trying to calculate if you actually need dairy or grains in your life anymore to survive until your next paycheck. This massive, frustrating gap between what the official experts say is happening and what you actually experience when you tap your debit card at the register is one of the biggest debates in our society right now. It feels exactly like you are looking at a weather forecast on your phone that insists it is 80 degrees and beautifully sunny, while you are currently standing outside in a t-shirt getting absolutely drenched by a freezing cold downpour. This is not just a minor disagreement about a few decimal points on a government spreadsheet. It is a full-blown war of words over whether the mainstream media is actively trying to gaslight you, or if we, the regular public, are simply terrible at understanding how modern economics actually works. The truth is that if you make major life decisions like buying a home, switching careers, or adjusting your family budget based on statistics that do not match your daily life, you are the one who has to pay the financial consequences. Let us peel back the layers on how this weird economic disconnect actually works, starting with the favorite three-letter word that the news media loves to throw in your face every single evening. The first thing the media loves to shout about to prove the economy is healthy is gross domestic product, which is just a fancy economic term for the total dollar value of all the goods and services a country produces over a specific time. Think of gross domestic product, or GDP, like a giant cash register receipt for the entire nation. If we as a country make more stuff, build more homes, and sell more services this year than we did last year, the media declares that the economy is growing and everyone should be throwing a party in the streets. There is a massive, glaring catch to this number that the experts rarely explain on the evening news. The total dollar value of everything sold can go up simply because everything got way more expensive, not because people are actually buying more things or living better lives. Imagine a local bakery that sells 10 loaves of bread for $2 each, meaning their total sales for the day equal $20. Now imagine that the next year, because flour and electricity costs skyrocket, they have to double the price of each loaf to $4, which causes their struggling customers to only buy 5 loaves of bread. The bakery still brings in $20 of total revenue, so on a national economic spreadsheet, their contribution to the GDP looks completely stable and healthy. In reality, 5 real people went home empty-handed without bread to feed their families because they could no longer afford the basic cost of food. This is exactly why high GDP growth numbers can feel so incredibly hollow when you are the one walking out of the supermarket with half-empty bags that somehow still cost you $100. Even when the national economy is technically expanding and more wealth is being generated, that extra money does not just magically distribute itself evenly among every single citizen. It usually pools at the very top of the corporate ladder, leaving the rest of us to look at the pretty charts on television and wonder why our personal bank accounts did not get the memo. This brings us to another favorite talking point of the media, which is the supposedly historic and amazing job market we are all currently enjoying. We hear it declared constantly by financial reporters that unemployment is at historic lows, which is supposed to mean that almost everyone who wants a job can easily find one. That sounds like an absolute dream scenario where workers have all the leverage and employers are desperately begging to pay us high wages. The official unemployment rate only measures whether you have any job at all, completely ignoring whether that job actually pays enough to cover your basic living expenses.
If you have to work 40 hours a week at an office and then spend another 20 hours driving your car for a ride-sharing app on the weekends just to keep up with rent, the government still counts you as fully employed. You are officially a win for the national economy, and your hustle is celebrated as a sign of a robust and flexible labor market. Your actual daily life is an exhausting, never-ending cycle of stress, but on the government's master spreadsheet, you are a glowing success story. The official data also completely ignores people who have given up looking for work out of sheer frustration, or people who are highly educated but forced to work low-wage retail jobs just to survive. A college graduate with a degree in computer science who is forced to brew espresso at a local cafe is technically employed, but they are certainly not building wealth. When the media reports that the job market is booming, they are looking purely at the quantity of jobs, while you are feeling the devastating lack of job quality. This is precisely why people get so incredibly angry when they hear commentators talk about how lucky we are to have such a great job market. It is like a local restaurant owner bragging to the town that they served a record number of meals this weekend, while leaving out the crucial detail that half of those meals consisted of burnt toast. To truly understand why the economic reality feels so painful right now, we have to look directly at the giant, destructive monster that has been quietly eating away at our purchasing power. You have probably seen a flood of headlines recently claiming that inflation is finally cooling down, or that the battle against rising prices has officially been won. When the average person hears that inflation is dropping, they naturally and logically expect that things are finally about to get cheaper. They expect that $12 fast food combo meal to go back to being $6, or their monthly rent to drop back down to what it was a few years ago. That is simply not how inflation works, and this specific misunderstanding is where the media causes the absolute most confusion. Inflation is the rate at which prices are rising, not the actual prices themselves. When the media reports that the annual inflation rate dropped from 8% down to 3%, it does not mean that prices went down by 5%. It simply means that prices are continuing to rise. They are just rising at a slightly slower pace than they were during the peak of the crisis. It is exactly like driving a car down the highway at 90 miles an hour and then easing off the gas pedal until you are going 70 miles an hour. You are still moving forward incredibly fast and covering a lot of ground. You are just not accelerating quite as aggressively as you were a minute ago. Your weekly groceries are still 30 or 40% more expensive than they were 3 years ago, and those high prices are locked in and staying at that painful level forever. Unless your personal salary also went up by 40% over those exact same 3 years, you have experienced a massive permanent cut to your standard of living. Even though the news anchor happily announces that inflation is solved, your wallet is still nursing a massive, painful economic hangover. This lingering price hangover is the real reason why people are so deeply frustrated with the economic narrative. The official charts say that the economic fever has finally broken, but the actual patient is still lying in bed feeling completely miserable and unable to move. Let us look at why the media keeps pushing these happy clinical statistics when almost everyone they talk to on the street is clearly struggling to keep their head above water. The media is not necessarily running some dark, highly coordinated conspiracy to make you feel crazy, but they do have very specific institutional incentives that guide how they report the news.
Most mainstream financial news outlets get their economic reports directly from giant investment banks, government press offices, and corporate public relations departments. These massive organizations naturally love high-level aggregate data because they operate on a global or national scale where individual stories get lost. A multi-billion-dollar bank or a massive international retail chain cares about total national consumer spending because that is how they measure their overall market health. They do not care, and frankly do not even see, that a family of 4 in Ohio had to completely stop buying fresh produce and meat just to pay their monthly electric bill. The reporters at these news desks often copy and paste these corporate summaries because they are incredibly easy to explain in a 2-minute segment and come from official-sounding sources. There is also the simple financial reality that both extreme fear and extreme optimism sell advertising space, but they do so in very different ways. When the economy is in a clear downturn, the media runs terrifying panic stories because panic is incredibly effective at grabbing your immediate attention and getting you to click. When the official numbers show even a tiny incremental recovery, they quickly pivot to cheering because they want to be the first to announce the triumphant return of prosperity. This constant dramatic swinging back and forth creates a public narrative that feels completely detached from the quiet daily struggle of managing a household budget. They are painting a beautiful abstract picture of the ocean based entirely on the sunny waves at the surface, while you are down at the bottom in a diving suit trying desperately not to drown. If the national media is looking at one economic reality and you are living in a completely different one, how do you actually protect your money without losing your sanity? The secret to surviving all of this exhausting financial noise is realizing that there are actually 2 entirely different economies running at the exact same time. There is the macroeconomy, which is the giant national system of trillions of dollars, federal interest rates, and global trade agreements that politicians and media anchors love to argue about. Then there is your personal microeconomy, which consists entirely of your job, your monthly rent or mortgage, your savings account, and your immediate grocery bills. The national economy can be performing incredibly well on a corporate spreadsheet, while your personal economy is in a devastating quiet recession. The reverse is also completely true, where you can find creative ways to grow your own income, build your savings, and thrive even when the national news is shouting about an impending collapse. When you finally stop stressing over whether the national GDP went up by a fraction of a percent, you can focus all of your energy on the things you can actually control. This means looking honestly at your own skills, negotiating with your current boss for a raise, or being absolutely ruthless about where your hard-earned money goes every single month. You do not have to accept the media's glossy version of reality, but you also do not have to let their negative headlines make you feel completely helpless. The next time you see a smiling anchor talking about how great things are, you can simply nod, ignore the superficial noise, and keep focusing on your own balance sheet. After all, the only economy that truly matters to you and your family is the one that actually pays your rent, covers your medical bills, and buys your groceries. If you want to keep figuring out this wild, complicated world of money together without all the corporate spin and dry textbook lectures, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Just remember, I am just a guy sharing my thoughts, so this is not financial advice, but hopefully it helps you make a little more sense of the madness.